Namaste. I'm Dr. Robert, and my subject today is contraception and abortion. This is a very controversial subject, and there's a lot to say about it, and I'm going to try to provide you a perspective from Ayurveda and a perspective from Vimalananda, my mentor, my own perspective. And I'm going to start off with the perspective of my parents. My parents were born, both of them, a little more than 100 years ago, and they were Southern Baptists. They were not at all wild liberal people, but and they said that certainly they were not in favor of abortion, but they also believed that if a woman was pregnant and if she was convinced that she would not be able to properly take care of the child, then it would be better for her to abort that child rather than to bring into the world a child that would then she would not be able to properly take care of, or would come into a situation that would be extremely detrimental for the child. And that's what they taught me. And that is the approach that I have taken as my general basic approach ever since. And this was extended when I went to India and started studying Ayurveda and met Vimalananda. And Vimalananda said something very similar. He said that abortion is a very strong karma. In fact, he said that if once the heart starts beating, the karma for an abortion is basically the karma for murder. You're interfering with a being who is trying to be born. But then he would go on to say that the fact is that a jivatma, an individual soul, an individual spirit, is trying to be born through a woman. Needs a womb in order to be born. So there's the karmas of the woman and the karmas of that spirit. And sometimes, he would say, it is the karma of that spirit simply to be in the womb briefly and not be able to be born. And that's why 10 to 15% of all pregnancies end in miscarriages anyway, possibly even more, because sometimes a woman never knows she's pregnant and was pregnant very briefly and has a miscarriage. So sometimes it's the karma of the child to have that sort of experience. And we can, and certainly it will be the case that sometimes if a fetus is deliberately aborted, that's because the karmas of the fetus needed to have that happen. So it's a very complex situation. And this is not something that one should think about either in the extreme way that many people are thinking about it nowadays, that abortion should never be permitted under any circumstances, or the extreme way that, for example, in the early Roman Republic, it was treated, and that was that a man could do whatever he wanted to. He could even murder his children if he wanted to. It was perfectly legal for him to do that. These are the two extremes, neither of which, in my opinion, are sensible, rational, compassionate, or worthy of being regarded as human. We need to try to always, under all circumstances, try to understand the situation very clearly. So, ideally, a woman should employ conception with the understanding that anytime she has sex with a fertile man, there is the potential for her to become pregnant. And ideally, you use some sort of contraception other than birth control pills, because they can very definitely disturb your hormonal balance. Please consult Dr. Claudia Welch's work for a clearer understanding of these hormonal questions. So if a woman is aware, and really, I believe that anyone, woman or man, who engages in sex in such a way that a pregnancy could occur should be aware that a pregnancy might occur at any moment, and they need to be prepared to address the karmic realities of that situation. If these are two partners who are willing and who are doing so under their own volition, then they should together work to determine what sort of response they're going to perform if in fact they become pregnant. If it is the case where the woman has been abused by rape, by incest, if it is a situation where the woman's life would be in danger if she carried the fetus to term, then a woman should have the opportunity to elect to decide what she is going to do, because simply forcing such a woman to give birth, no matter what happens to her, is also something that should be illegal. It is wrong. It is completely wrong to force someone to do something that is that detrimental, especially when it is not something that she elected to do. So, as I said, this is a very controversial subject, and I in no way by any of my comments am I trying to suggest that any woman who has had or is contemplating an abortion should be vilified in any way. I would like to express my compassion, for I know many women who have had abortions. I feel very compassionate for that very wrenching decision that has to be made, this is the decision that I believe needs to be taken with great seriousness and with great sobriety, and I pray that anyone who ever has to make this decision will be able to do so in a way that she can do what is right for her. It is definitely the case that in any of these situations, it is not solely the karma of the woman who elects to have an abortion. The karma of the man who made her pregnant is intimately connected to this karma, particularly if he makes her pregnant and forces her either to have an abortion or forces her not to have an abortion. That force takes the majority of the karma onto him. Forcing a woman, making a decision for a woman what she needs to do with her karma, as state legislatures are now trying to do, that is also a very serious karma. And those legislators who make those decisions are taking those karmas onto themselves. Everyone needs to think very clearly about the karmas that they are performing. Namaste.